The last thing that we're going to look at from the second meditation is Descartes' brief discussion of what I am, what the human person is, right? So Descartes puts this in the first person because he's doing this kind of meditation exercise where he's thinking to himself, right? That's the way he writes the meditations. And so the question he asks is, well, what am I? But really, what he's asking about is, well, what is a human person? What are we? What kind of thing are we? And one of the reasons I want to focus on this is because, well, there are two reasons really. First, it's one of the most influential parts of Descartes' philosophy, his view of what the human person is, and he touches on it here, and then comes back to it at much greater length in the sixth meditation, which we will cover when we get there. So that's one reason to cover it. But the second reason to cover it is because this section of the second meditation in particular, in this discussion, it contains an explicit attempt by Descartes to distance himself from the Aristotelian tradition. Though he doesn't mention Aristotle by name or scholastics or any of these other philosophers who came prior to him, given what he says, he's clearly targeting his arguments at people like Aristotle, people influenced by Aristotle. And one sign of this is the fact that when he first considers the question, what am I? The first answer he gives is, well, rational animal. That was very famously the standard Aristotelian definition of a human being. We didn't see it in Aristotle. We saw things that would support that, right? The function of a human being is rational activity. Aristotle just assumes the whole time that we are a particular kind of animal. We share much in common with the other animals, namely perception and then also nutrition and growth. And so the kind of standard definition of a human being in this Aristotelian intellectual paradigm is that a human being is a rational animal. And so when Descartes introduces that as his first kind of candidate for what he might be, this I that he has proved exists, right? This is after the cogito. This I that I have proved exists. What is it? Well, I don't know. Maybe it's a rational animal. What he's considering there is the Aristotelian system, the answer they would give. And he very quickly and definitively rejects it. Well, that doesn't make any sense. If I know that I exist, I know that. But what is rationality? What is animality? When I think about those things, well, geez, I just find myself in all kinds of doubts because I haven't proved yet that there's not a deceiving God. And so when I start thinking about what rationality and animality might be, well, who knows? Maybe I'm just being deceived about all that. I'd have to pin those things down. That seems very unlikely that I'm going to be able to give a kind of thoroughgoing, definitive definitions of rationality and animality. And so I don't even really know what that means, rational animal. Nonetheless, I know that I exist. I have no idea whether any rational animals exist, though. I don't even know what those things are. And there could be a deceiving God, and there are no animals and whatever, right? But I know that I exist. And so I must not be a rational animal because look, Descartes doesn't quite spell it out this way. He spells out some other things this way, but the idea would be something like this. Because look, I have a certain property, namely, I must exist. I know that I have to exist. Whenever I think about me, I know that I exist. But rational animals aren't like that. They don't have that property. There might not be any. I might be deceived about them. There might not actually be any rational animals. So there's a sign, right? I have a property that rational animals don't. Namely, I absolutely must exist. And so I must not be a rational animal. That's the kind of argument he gives. Now, after eliminating that answer, that Aristotelian answer, he goes on to consider the only three options that seem to him plausible. And with that argument against Aristotle in the background, the way this argument proceeds is very easy to understand. So what am I? This I that I have proved exists. I'm either a body, mind, or soul composite, or I'm a mind, a soul. Descartes uses the words mind and soul interchangeably. He doesn't mean anything specifically religious by soul. Soul and mind are synonyms for Descartes. And this is true throughout the whole meditations. So whenever you see the word mind, you could just as well see the word soul and then vice versa. All right, so those are really the only kind of three options after we eliminate that rational animal business. Well, look, Descartes says, I can't be a body for much the same reason that me, Jeff, was just saying about why I can't be a rational animal. Because look, I know that I exist. I don't know that any bodies exists. I don't know that, I've proven that I exist. I haven't proven that, when I'm looking at what I take to be my hand, that it's actually there. Maybe the deceiving God is deceiving me about that. I really kind of believe that I have a body, but maybe I don't. Maybe that's the deceiving God deceiving me. He could deceive me about that. He can't deceive me about my own existence, but he could deceive me about my body. Maybe I don't have a body. But look, well, that's a sign that I am not my body because I necessarily exist whenever I think I exist. But my body doesn't. I might be deceived about it. And so I must be different from my body. I must not be just my body. That's not what I am. By the very same token, same argument, he's going to argue that I can't be a body mind composite. This looks very much like your something you would find from Aristotle. I take it that Descartes means to be attacking a certain kind of Aristotelian here, right? Because look at what he mentions. He mentions all these life activities like sensing or perception, moving, eating, nutrition, growth, right? All that stuff that we saw in Aristotle in the De Anima. And what Descartes says is, look, all those things are activities or functions of a body mind composite, a body soul composite. And Aristotle would agree, right? But look, Descartes says, my body might not exist. And so all of those things might not actually exist. I might not actually have any of those functions. It might seem to me like I'm seeing something. It might seem to me like I'm moving or eating or whatever. But maybe that's just the deceiving God deceiving me. And so, look, the body mind composite and I have these different properties. Whenever I think, I know that I exist, but I might be deceived about the existence of my body. And so I might be deceived about the existence of a body mind composite, right? There might not be any such thing. And so I am not a body mind composite either. And so that leaves the only option as three. I am a mind, Descartes thinks. That's what you are. That's what the human person is. The human person is not their body. The human person is their mind. And the way Descartes sums this idea up, he says, I am a thinking thing. That's essentially what I am, a thinking thing. I am a thinking thing that just, so zooming out of all these skeptical worries, the picture that Descartes is going to paint for us and that we're eventually going to see in the sixth meditation, his view is going to be that the human person is simply their mind. And the way things tend to work out here in this world is that human persons get kind of hooked up to bodies, right? So human persons, human minds, the mind will kind of inhabit in some way a body and control it. But the body is something like a machine that the mind can control, right? So you are not your body. You are your mind. That's what Descartes takes himself to have established at this point in the meditations. So I have proved that I exist, even if there's an deceiving God. And I know that this I that I have proved exists, it is a thinking thing.